Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to have Alex Skandalis today. First time we're having no real host. This will just be a back and forth conversation between me and Alex, and I'm happy to have him. He is the CEO of United Travel Umpires, Executive VP of United Collegiate Umpires, and the owner of New Jersey Sports Assigning Bureau. Alex, thanks for coming on. How's everything in Vegas?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be able to do this. Vegas is good. I think we're in the same spot as pretty much everyone else, just waiting and seeing what's going to happen and waiting and seeing where we're going with all this, and just kind of locked up right now.
I hear you, man. We're in the same boat. Let's jump right into the charitable initiatives here. What have you guys been doing? It looks like you've gotten a great response on social media from what you're doing to benefit first responders.
Yeah, so we're just having a T-shirt campaign. We're lucky enough to have the kind of United name, which feeds into some different hashtags pretty simply. So we really started the hashtag United Against COVID, and started a T-shirt campaign with United Against COVID on the front of the T-shirt, and then umpire mask and a surgical mask on the back there, and just working with Stripes and Strikes, who does our hat business and some of our off-field apparel, to put the shirts together. He's basically doing it at cost, and then we built in $5 to make a donation to the First Responders Children's Foundation, and they're a group that's been around for quite a bit of time. I think probably since around 9/11, maybe even a little before that, and they help to take care of the families of first responders who may have passed on and lost their lives in the fight. And specifically for COVID, they're working on masks, helping the supply chain with masks for everyone, providing hotel rooms for first responders so they don't have to go home and infect family members, things like that. And then unfortunately, the last piece is paying for funerals of some people who have lost their lives to this. So it was a good way to do something, I think, on a united front. From the standpoint of our geography is so big, it would have been tough to maybe pick a particular hospital or a particular region. So we wanted to do something more regional, but just with my roots in New Jersey, New York area, picked a foundation in that area that could really help with those two states, especially given everything they're going through. So they're on Stripes and Strikes for people to purchase, and we're running that through May 9th, and then hopefully be able to make a big donation. I think I talked to Keith today, and we're over 100 right now, so that's pretty exciting. And then he's also going to make a donation out of any of the other sales of United stuff that he has until May 9th. So really, a guy that his business isn't doing so well, but still, has it in him to do something for this group and this pandemic. And I really admire him for that, and happy to do business with Keith and get this rolling. So, and I know you guys are doing some stuff too. I saw with some local hospitals and things like that. So what's TSEUA doing?
Yeah, we're I think it's cool that we're both doing it, because we're so usually caught up in different stuff this time of the year, and now we have so much downtime. We might as well put that time to some good use.
Yeah, sure.
But great initiative you guys have going. I wish we had a name that fit into something like this as well as United does. When I see the hashtags you come up with. But we didn't have as much creativity as you, but I just figured we would put it out there to ask our umpires to make donations for first responders. We would split it in half between the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund and 2 local hospitals, which we haven't chosen yet. We're still taking the donations in. It'll probably be something in South Jersey where we'll make that donation. And then also I don't want to release too much information because we haven't gotten the final proofs of everything we have to do yet. But our high school group, Tri-County Umpires Association, has put forward quite a bit of money to basically honor the seniors who will.
That's cool.
I don't know if they're going to lose their whole season, but they'll certainly be severely shortened. So I feel like those guys could get forgotten about in all of this. And I couldn't imagine being a high school senior right now, and a baseball player who looks forward to my season the whole year, and then fifth day of practice or scrimmages, it's taken away from me. So I think we should do something for those guys to remember them, and what they had to go through, to sacrifice for everybody else.
Yeah, I think we're seeing it a little bit across the board. We saw college seniors, high school seniors, and unfortunately yesterday, I think we just lost the Williamsport tournament for the year. And I have no doubt that probably Cal Ripken will be right behind there. So it's, that's another kind of big year in baseball, and those 12-year-olds won't get those opportunities. So I feel for those guys, but it's great that you guys have thought of them and thought of, local hospitals. And there's just so many places that need help right now. I mean, down from all the healthcare workers and all the people that have lost something. I mean, who would ever thought this was where we were going to be right now? So like you said, I would normally be assigning games and behind a computer, I'm sure, like you would. So we've got some time to hopefully do some good things. And I know that a lot of umpires are in those kind of worlds: first responders, police officers, teachers, all of those kind of jobs that affect our youth and affect our communities. And anything we can do, and like you can do, I think is great. And I see people all over the country doing similar things. So, as a group, I think we're stepping up, and I'm glad to be a small part of it.
Yeah, no doubt. And, there were so many people that you could assist. That was the real challenge for me. I think you probably ran into the same problem. Like, where do you send the money? Because there's so many people in need, so many different, sectors that are affected by this. That was the biggest challenge for me. Getting the donations out of some guys and committing to do it was the easy part. I'm sure it was the same for you.
Yeah, of course. It's always difficult. I mean, we're asking people that are struggling to give as well, and that's they're struggling in their own right. And I admire those guys stepping up, and our umpires, I think, in both associations and all the associations and all over the place are doing what they can, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure any little bit helps, no matter what the cause is. So I certainly appreciate it. And I, again, admire all the people stepping up with their hard-earned money when they probably need it the most, to help different charitable organizations.
Sure. Very selfless in an uncertain time like this, because we don't know what the future holds, for the most part anyway. Let's shift a little bit to some umpiring stuff. We've had a little bit of a presence just running a podcast similar to what we're doing right now. And most of the feedback we get generally leads to some semblance of a question about how to get into college baseball. I think that's awesome for a guy like you, because you want to see guys get into college baseball. What are you looking for in potential NCAA umpires? And, maybe highlight some topics that maybe wouldn't be brought up in most cases, like, your typical, umpire mechanics and things like that. What are you looking for in a potential United umpire, college umpire?
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the process first. Obviously, our organization has really embraced taking umpires in and not necessarily looking at years of experience, and really trying to judge a product of an umpire. I mean, an umpire is basically putting a product out there. They have the skills, and they have the demeanor, and they have all of these pieces that contribute to whatever their umpire makeup is. And certainly experience is one of those things. But in my kind of past life of college baseball, there was a restriction on it. If you didn't go to professional umpire school, you had to have worked high school baseball for 3 years, or some groups were 5 years. And that's one of the things kind of through Collegiate Officials Group and now United that we wanted to not necessarily put years on something, because one of the things I learned long ago is it doesn't matter if you've been doing something for 20 years. If you've been doing it wrong for 20 years, that experience really doesn't do much for us. So what we've tried to do is create a situation where people can advance from the lowest levels of 8, 9, 10-year-old baseball all the way through, Division I college. And the way that we've really done that is, United obviously has a pretty strong partnership with NJSAB, which I'm also an owner in. We're a high school group in northern New Jersey. We partner very heavily. We're almost one company with Mid-Atlantic Collegiate out of Maryland and Virginia. And what we really then try to do is look to some of the other high school and rec groups, in between there, or to the north of NJSAB, to try to get a stable of umpires. And one of the things that, I've loved about our relationship is you guys have put in place a method of training to get us some umpires that can start to look at working college baseball. So if the question is, how do you do that? It really comes down to, you become an umpire, however you do that. If you go to umpire school, if you start working after you are done playing, whatever it may be, and you work games and you get training from your local associations, from trainings that are put on throughout the country, whatever it may be. And then basically you have to find a way to get in front of our group. And that would be through evaluations that we run, through clinics that we run, and you have to find a way to put yourself on the radar. And I think sometimes that just happens organically. I mean, people in our organization watch a lot of baseball games. I happen to go to a game and see you, and we think you can work college baseball. We might invite you to something, and sometimes it happens easily for people, just by luck. And then other people kind of fly under the radar and don't get seen immediately and don't have that opportunity, and they have to find ways to advocate for themselves. So basically, I think you have to get yourself in front of the people that can get you into college baseball. And in the situation of South Jersey and Philly guys, I mean, that really means, United, or there's two other collegiate organizations, and you just have to find your way to go to their tryouts and take their feedback. And I think that it's really important for umpires to be honest with themselves, and not just sign up for a college tryout or, try to be a college umpire because they want to be. Talk to people in your organization that are already collegiate umpires. Take their feedback honestly, not only on specific things, but also just in general. Like, do you think I'm ready to try out? Do you think I'm ready to be a college umpire? And then, do your best, put your best foot forward, take the feedback, and hopefully you're in a spot where it works. And then in some cases, take feedback, work for a year, gain experience, do the things you're supposed to be doing, and come back. And it's not always easy for someone to hear no, but we also hold being a college umpire at a level of esteem that we don't want to just say anybody can be a college umpire, anybody can go out and work our levels of college baseball. It's really important to us that we have a standard, and that's at any level. It just happens this is, for United, it's the college level, it's junior college, and Division III is, our lower levels. And we hope to get as many umpires at that level as we can. We don't have a restriction or a number. We would love to have 1,000 college umpires, but it means that you're going to be a college umpire, not that we're just going to take you in because you applied.
Right. Now, I find it fascinating, whenever we do speak, and we don't speak every day or even every week, probably 20 times a year.
Sure.
And I think this will either be really boring or really entertaining to see some of the similar answers we give to certain questions. I find us very similar in the way we look at things, especially in the way you described. Maybe years of service is not the best way to analyze who is ready to make this tryout or something of that nature. I think that's pretty innovative, especially at the college level. It's easy for me to do that at the travel baseball level. What took you in that direction to sort of not downplay it, but you don't put so much emphasis on how many years you've been doing this?
I think at the end of the day, I think for a lot of us, like, bad examples lead to the way we think about things. And I think I saw early in my career at a bunch of different levels that experience was all of a sudden was like the paramount. Like, if you've been doing this for 20 years, like, people should listen to you and you should get the biggest games or you should work this level. And I just always hated that. Number one, because I was the 19-year-old kid who wanted to get those games, thought I was better than people, and saw those games continually going to other people. And not just games, but get into a classroom session or a association meeting and you're not getting anything from the person that's up in front of the room. They're just up there because they were elected to a position, or they're a mechanics chair. And that's not to say that, there are a lot of associations doing a lot of great things, but in certain spots, there have also been, misses, and the wrong person is up there teaching and things like that. So that was one thing for me that I always hated. And I think, again, when you see things you don't like or things that you like in everything that we do, we try to incorporate them. And I knew that there's always a young stable of umpires out there that can do the job. And it's not necessarily, they haven't been around forever, and it's not necessarily about that. Can you do the job on the field? And are you respected by coaches? Are you respected by your peers? And are you getting things right? And on the other side of that, and I would be remiss if I didn't address this, I mean, we have umpires who are highly, highly skilled at a young age, and we have umpires on the other end of the spectrum that are highly, highly skilled, maybe not technically or mechanically, and they can still do the job. They're not maybe up to date on some of that stuff, but they have experience. They have, they really tackle the personality part of umpiring much better, and they are in a situation where coaches respect them and peers respect them. So we have umpires kind of all over the board in terms of, we like to look at really three pieces of umpiring. That's knowledge, skills, and personality. And that's kind of something that was presented to me the first time by John Porter at Mid-Atlantic Collegiate. And it's some combination of those three that make you a collegiate level umpire, professional level umpire, or whatever level you're at. The combination of those three is what makes you a good umpire. And you don't have to have 100 on all three to be able to be a successful umpire. Some people's personality is way better. Some people just don't get things wrong. But definitely at all levels, the umpires who succeed are the ones who are in the high 90s in all three of those. So it's accuracy, it's ability to know the mechanics and know where you're supposed to be, and then be out there and be somebody that both the umpires and the coaching staffs and the GMs and the athletic directors all want to be around. So if I can give anybody any advice, it's certainly to try to master all three of those. You can call every pitch right for the next 10 years, but if you're an idiot and nobody wants to deal with you, you're not assignable. You're not going to be promoted. So think about all three aspects, not just one or not just two.
Yeah, and I think those are all really good points. And we talk to our guys all the time, and obviously it translates to the college level about being a good person on the field, somebody who other people want to be around, and being approachable. I don't think you can even, if that's not something you have, you can't get beyond that as an assigner, probably, especially at the college level. If it's not somebody who can speak with people and deal with people and who's approachable, how can you put them on a field?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's important at all levels. Now, obviously, I think we get the most notoriety from United, but I'm still in the NJSAB travel high school world, and the one thing that I will say is those things are different at all different levels. Who you are as an umpire, especially in terms of your personality, working a 10-year-old game or a high school game or a Division I college game, those three things are completely different and sometimes don't even translate in terms of the personality piece of this. So it's not only about developing a personality, but kind of developing that personality specific to where you are. And there's plenty of umpires that work Division I baseball and, also still work 15, 20 high school games. And certainly what you're doing on a high school game is a lot different than what you're doing on a Division I college game in terms of some of the decorum and things like that. And
Sure.
if you're out there helping train umpires on some 13 and 14-year-old games, that's completely different too. So
Right.
it's developing that personality for the level you're at.
Makes a lot of sense. With your thoughts on, I'm going to leave this open-ended for you, but the territorial nature of just what we do, leads to to me, way more negatives than positives. How can we deal with this better just nationwide as assigners?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've talked about here internally with Mid-Atlantic Collegiate and United and our high school groups, and I mean, you've been a part of some of these conversations too, is just we have to work in partnership, not only umpire to assigner, but assigner to assigner. And I think if we always think about what's in the best interest of the umpire, we wind up in a better spot. So, look, I don't know what this pandemic is going to do to umpire supply. My guess is the state of the economy probably makes the umpire supply more, but I certainly will say from, in the last 3 to 4 years, we've definitely seen umpire drop off, and the things that were going on between assigners have gotten to a level that is really crazy at the high school and rec level. Just assigners and companies just worried about, like, how am I going to get my games covered? And, if it was putting guys on too many games a day or whatever it may be. And I was guilty at times too. And not thinking about sometimes what's in the best interest of the umpire and what game could they be working that day that's better for their portfolio, better for their resume, and how we as assigners can work together to help that. I mean, we never want to deny someone an opportunity to work a high level game. I mean, if someone called me, I had them on a bunch of 14-year-old games, and they needed to work a county game, or got offered a county game, or got offered a state game, or a lower level college game. You have to try to do everything you can as an assigner to help those umpires. Now, there's the other end of the coin too, which is like, it doesn't work if it's a half hour before the game or an hour before the game, or those kind of things. But I think we always use the word independent contractor in terms of umpiring, and umpires, what that means for them is it gives them an opportunity to build a reputation, and work with their assigners, again, in partnership, to try to advance their career where they can. It's a two-way street between umpires and assigners, and it's a two-way street between assigners and assigners. And I think we all just need to take a step back sometimes and think about what's in the best interest of the umpire. Think about whether the avenue that someone's taking is fair to everyone, and just try to be good people. I mean, at the end of the day, we all kind of learned what was right and wrong at some point, and I think we all have an idea what's right and wrong. And if we use that to guide us and use common sense, I think sometimes assigning would be better, and assigning companies would get along better, and the relationships between umpires and assigners would be better as well.
Sure.
I mean, how are you seeing that? And I mean, I know you're in different worlds in terms of now getting into high school, but also, certainly different tournament providers use different assigners in South Jersey and PA. And how does that work for you? And what are you trying to do to help the relationships down there?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think every region and territory is different in regards to the people that are, at the heads of these organizations. What we've always tried to do, and I think that, is anybody who you think is ready to go to college baseball, we're pushing them as far as you want them to go. And, it's pretty, I mean, maybe somebody doesn't say it, but, like Kurt Widener or Jerry Wilgus or whatever, those guys going up to work for United doesn't necessarily help us cover our games that day or cover our weekend tournaments. It doesn't help me at all in that way. But you're right. It's the right thing to do for those guys. And if they're committing their umpiring career to me initially, I should be taking, basically the oath to do what I think is right for them. If they want to go to college baseball, I should be doing everything I can to help them get there. and worry about the games below that level, that's my job to do. And I don't think they should be held down by, some staffing issues we might have at the travel baseball level. But the relationship building between assigner to assigner has been very, very challenging. You and I have gotten along well, and I've appreciated that. But I think we're dealing with some organizations that may not be doing as well as they were at one time. And so they see other organizations as a threat, and any sort of cooperation there is maybe ceding some ground or ceding games or giving up some market share or however you want to put it. And I kind of get that, but it's also been very difficult to then work together with some organizations like that. So that's really been a challenge, especially for me in particular. And I had a question to you on how you've been so successful building those relationships, because I've experienced a lot of roadblocks in trying to connect with other organizations. What do you think you guys have done it clearly better than we have in terms of working together with other organizations. Why do you think that is?
That's a tough question because we haven't necessarily always done the best job with that. I would definitely say at some point, and maybe sometimes now too, I'm a little bit of a bull in a china shop, and it was the company. We have to grow. And I don't even really know when the page turned for me. But at some point it was just like, hey, I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody how great our company is or our organization or what we're doing. We're just going to go out and do it. Do what we think's right. We're going to showcase it. We're going to, have a guy like Danny Miller who, has been with us forever, is one of my best friends, probably my best friend. Use video, use audio, use everything that we can do to show who NJSAB is, who Mid-Atlantic Collegiate is, who United is, and how we are going to promote Umpires, how we're going to promote our association. And I think at some point when we made the decision to do that, other people saw it as well. And we gained, again, going back to that word partnership, we gained the partnership of Umpires. And I think at times I think early in my career, we probably thought, Umpires are replaceable. We can get whoever, it doesn't matter. And I think at some point I realized that wasn't the right way to do it. Again, going back to common sense, right and wrong, these are people who are partners in what we're doing. Let's give them the best effort. And in turn, I think people then understand it's a two-way street. I'm an umpire. I want to give back to my association because they're going to give to me. And just in terms of getting along with people, I think we still have issues with that in northern New Jersey. There's still, this contract and that contract and high school contracts. And that stuff is really hard. And I think at the end of the day, people are still going to be driven by whether they have games or whether they don't have games, whether they have the ability to work the games that they have worked for 20 years or 15 years. And I think the biggest advice that I have, just ignore it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to assign our high schools and our recreation baseball to the best level that we can. We're going to do the same thing at the college level. And especially at the college level, I mean, we try never to deny anyone an opportunity that would be in the best interest of their career. We have people every week, getting sucked to the South to work some bigger conferences and things like that. And it's important that we let them go. It's also important that the assigners get together on some of that stuff. And like I said, I guess I'm kind of starting to be the old man in this. Maybe not by age.
A little ahead of me in this. I'm still kind of bull in china shop, I think.
Yeah, well, if I can do anything for you or anyone who's in the same position, because there's assigning is getting younger, I would love to be able to prevent just one mistake that I made for somebody else. And if that's just by talking or whatever, because I mean, I'm a true believer now that if you can create partnerships with umpires, partnerships with your clients, that's how you succeed in this, because this is a word of mouth business,
Sure.
and you want that positive word of mouth all the time.
Now, have you experienced issues with other like assigners below the college level that may not be thrilled with sort of handing over their what is probably one of their best umpires or top umpires up to the college level, because that will negatively affect the product they can put on the field on a daily basis?
Yeah, we've unfortunately dealt with that in some spots. It really varies all over the place. We've tried to do the best that we can do in terms of getting our collegiate schedules out early, so that we're not springing something on a high school assigner a day before. I mean, right now, 3 schedules, that's all different. But just in terms of, again, in partnership, we're going to do everything we can to almost make the other assigner or make the other group see that, hey, these guys are doing all of this so it's easier for us to fill our games. And then hopefully convince them that, it's in the best interest of umpires to work at a higher level. But we've certainly seen it. And it's just, again, like, when I do see that and I see someone getting upset about it or worrying that they're not going to cover their games, instead of being upset with those people, I try to see how our organizations can make it better. And maybe there's a point where I've just given as much as I can give and we can't do anything more. But at first it was, hey, okay, we're going to do everything we can to get our schedules out in December. And that way high school assigners, they know, kind of where they're at. And I've said to certain high school and rec assigners, like, hey, I'm going to touch base with you if I need somebody. And if you tell me that they're, on the 3rd and 7th team in the state that day and you need them, like, I can find someone else. That's one of the luxuries that I have, is I'm typically not depending on one person for a slot. So I may have a choice of 8, 10 people on a day with a reschedule, and I can feel around like, okay, so-and-so was helping an assigner on a JV baseball game today. They're the great person to pull that day, as opposed to maybe the guy that's working, Seton Hall Prep and Randolph that day, to give an example of a matchup in, our area that would be a big high school matchup. So it's just about, trying to make people understand the partnership. But I've kind of, the days of me getting upset about that are past me. And I just try to continually communicate. And the other thing that I will say here too is, I try to encourage the umpires to communicate with those assigners. It's one thing when someone gets blindsided by a game or needing a replacement for somebody, but I mean, I try to tell my guys that work a heavy high school schedule, have the conversation with your high school assigner. Let's get some parameters. If it's 24 hours before, like, I'm happy to replace you, no problem. If it's, hey, I really need a phone call because, we're so tight every day. But if we get parameters in place and get assigners to kind of commit to where they're at, I think that really helps the situation, because then it's like everybody knows what that assigner said. And the other piece is, are we really going to get an assigner that goes on record and says, look, I'm never gonna let you out. Like, I'm not gonna let you promote yourself. And if he does that, then the umpire has a decision. Is that someone I want to be working for? But let's lay it out up front, and now we all kind of know the parameters where we're at, and then we all have decisions. And on the flip side, I've seen assigners who say, hey, it's too hard for me to replace people last minute. I don't want to deal with it. I would prefer that you just not work high school games for me if the majority of your schedule is going to be college games. And, for me, anytime I could get a college umpire on my games, it was worth the hassle of having to reschedule at the last second or find a replacement. But for the people that don't, I respect them for saying it up front, following through, and just being open and communicating it. And it's not backdoor, it's not territorial. It's just like, hey, I'm an independent contractor, you're an independent contractor, you've made a choice and I'm making a choice. And it's not at the last second, it's not denying you some assignment you have, it's in October before we're even talking about specific games. And I've always had respect for that too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've always thought anytime I can get a college umpire on a high school game is a benefit for everyone involved, including the players and coaches.
Sure.
I'm curious, you come into contact with a lot of different organizations, below the college level. What are some common issues you see in how they're handling the umpires in preparation for college baseball before they get to you?
I think one of the things that comes up a lot is guys think that they're getting trained and guys think that they're getting good advice, and people are telling them, hey, good job, good job, good job. And we get them on a field and it's like, wow, that's a lot different than we think a college umpire looks like. So I guess I'll tackle the second thing I said first, which is, just in terms of the good job, good job, good job. I think certainly what I see is throughout some organizations, we have people just getting patted on the back and they're being told they're doing an excellent job. And maybe they are in some cases. I don't know, but everybody is being told that. And that,
Alex,
that's
do you think
really
that's
difficult.
because of the umpire shortage where, you have assignors or heads of organizations that are short on umpires already, so they don't want to lose any more umpires. So we get the perpetually positive.
I'm sure that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. I think the other part of it is, we still have some organizations out there that they don't have anyone on staff who can critically watch a game and say, you're doing this right or you're doing this wrong. Or
right.
So, we start to shift into some things that I think people can evaluate a little bit easier, which is like, hey, your pants were pressed, or your hat looks great, or you showed up on time. And we start to evaluate people based on objective things, where umpiring is subjective. And if we're going to promote, evaluate, and help umpires, we have to have people on staffs that can do that work. And so I think that's kind of one problem is we're not having enough connection between high-level college associations, professional associations, and maybe some of the amateur associations. And there are plenty of organizations doing a great job all over the country, seen it everywhere, from the lowest levels of 9 and 10-year-old baseball all the way through the high school level and men's leagues and things like that. They're out there. But I think everybody needs to take a look at what they're giving to their umpires, and if they can't provide what they need to provide, they need to find someone who can. And I think that was something early in my career. I had a lot of experience, but it was always about bringing in the best. We brought in AAA umpires, guys that worked big league games, guys that worked high-level college baseball, and let them do the teaching. I don't need to do it. I mean, now I can, but it's been a while. I mean, I've stolen a lot of teaching from a lot of different people to get to this point. So,
Sure.
But early in my career and to some of those organizations out there, don't think just because you've been umpiring 20 years that you can help someone. And a lot of guys can, but a lot of guys can't. And it comes back to something I always say. Everybody's just got to be honest with themselves. And try to work in partnership and try to make this the best we can.
Sure.
So let me ask you a question, because I think you're doing some different stuff, and it's one of the things that kind of attracted me to your organization, obviously we have a boatload of junior college in South Jersey, so we're always looking for not only umpires but really good umpires, because obviously we know that Cumberland and Gloucester and places Brookdale and places like that are playing high level baseball. But how have you convinced guys to be a part of training at kind of that level of amateur baseball? I mean, I struggle with it at NJSAB sometimes. You know, guys just want to take their games and they know we need them. And but how do we get them to actually want to train, want to be better, want to learn, and things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that was really difficult at the beginning. Very, very, very difficult, like pulling teeth. But slowly, it's gotten much easier, and it's really just assumed now that if you come here, this is what you're signing up for, and it's the pat on the back stuff is, you know, when you do something great, obviously we're going to do that, but we're constantly breaking guys down and critiquing and how we can get them better. The great part is the culture that's been built here is that it's not really that difficult anymore. Probably based on we don't really have as much of a manpower shortage as you hear so often, which I'm very, very thankful for. It makes my job a lot easier. But at the beginning, we just laid it down. If you're not willing to train and get better, it's just probably not going to work out between us, and that's fine. Like there's no hard feelings there. And then as we started to acquire contracts and the desirable games in the area, some guys probably just, I don't really want to train, but if I want to work these games, I'm going to have to. And that solved half the issue. And then the other half of the guys wanted, once you convince them that you have something that could help them. I think that was another hurdle we had to cross. You know, when I was 23 years old, 50-year-old guys looked at me and said, what can he tell me about umpiring that I don't already know? Once we proved to them that we have things that can help them and they saw the benefit on the field or even in the training sessions, we saw a lot of attitudes change. So you really have to believe in the conviction of it and continue to sell it up to these guys.
Yeah.
I think eventually the key turns and there's way less resistance from there on out.
Yeah, and I mean, you've done a great job in terms of a cost standpoint. I think, I mean, I know what the expense is that goes into running umpire sessions and running trainings and things like that. And, you know, it's a little bit easier to ask guys to train when they're making $250 a game, $400 a game, whatever it is. But, you know, when they're making $50 a game and some of them are, you know, trying to work 4 a day, it's like, it's a little bit different, a little bit more difficult. And I think you've done a great job getting your people to help train for a low cost to you, I'm sure, if maybe nothing, and help the organization and give back. Because, I mean, I think, you know, if you ran a training that cost $350, you know, you would probably get a lot less people. And so I think you've recognized that you've got to stay in a certain price range, and it's going to encourage people because they see what the results are. But again, it kind of has to match with what their game fees, what their expectations are, or else it's really, you know, it's not going to work out because it's just going to be too much money.
Well, what's been helpful, and, you know, I didn't discuss it before, but like the connection we've had to get guys into college baseball. And, you know, also I wanted to mention earlier, just the way you guys advertise open showcase events for college, you know, umpires. You guys put, I mean, non-college umpires to get into college baseball. You guys put that stuff out early, whether it's Mercer County College or you're having it at Stockton. Guys see that. And so when guys have that aspiration to get into college baseball and they see the pathway to get there, then all of a sudden it's not that much of an ask to ask this umpire to pay $65 or $85 to come to a training where for the weekend he's going to be surrounded by college umpires that could assist him before he gets to you. You know, and we can help him, coach him to see what, or train him to do what you're going to want him to do when you get to that tryout for the most part. So that relationship has made it much easier to get guys to come to what we call, you know, advanced clinics. I don't know how advanced they are, but guys want to get into college baseball and they'll do a lot of things to get there.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we've tried to do, and we've talked about this, we've tried to be as inclusive as we can. I think one of the things that is a little bit different about our organization is we don't have registration fees. We don't have a uniform really other than a hat. So one of the things that we've really been able to benefit from is I can roster as many umpires as I want. Like it's never a situation where if I put someone on the roster, I feel like I have to use them because they've paid dues and they've invested this and invested that. I mean, so I'll take a lot of umpires that I want to be kind of on the radar and want to keep working. And maybe they don't work 20 games, maybe they don't work 5 games, but they're a part of the family. They're continually getting, the updates that we're giving. They're invited to our trainings like everyone is, and they're progressing towards something. I kind of always hated that model of, I'm in an association, so I expect to get games, and I've spent this and that. And the other piece of that, not only for new umpires, but what I also found in New Jersey, especially, was we had a lot of umpires who didn't work college baseball because it was cost prohibitive. They couldn't work Monday to Friday. Like it didn't work for them to get out of, their job by noon or whatever it might be. But they were available Saturday and Sunday, and they were good umpires. And how did we need them, and how did we work to get them incorporated? Was, well, if you take all these costs down, and now someone says, okay, well, I don't have to pay this, this, and this, and I just need a hat, and I need to keep working on my skills in the time that I do have. Now, all of a sudden, we opened up an avenue for, I'm going to say in northern New Jersey especially. I mean, I picked up 10 or 12 guys that in the past were, available to work college baseball on weekends, not during the week. And it just didn't make sense to them. But this kind of shift of idea and how we're doing it gave them an opportunity, and they're better for it and we're better for it. We're better that they're out on fields at the collegiate level, and we're not just wasting a college level umpire because of that.
Sure. And when you match those guys up that can just work weekends with some guys who can just work weekdays and not weekends,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you've gained a signing ability. I'm curious, because we had to recently sort of venture off into some areas that we weren't that familiar with, like up in North Jersey where you guys are, and that was a major challenge. So when I see you guys had the United Travel branch off and into areas like Kansas City and other cities in the Midwest or in the South, how difficult of a transition was that to acquire the umpiring talent, get familiar with the area, or were you already familiar?
I think a couple things there. I mean, if this was 10 years ago, I would have gone in there and said, my program's the best, and you should be a part of it. This is why. Forget about all the other games you work. Come work for me. And probably would have failed miserably. And in these years, I've learned it's about partnership. United has become a brand now that has a lot of recognition all over the country. And I think that people see what we're doing. Again, a lot of that is Danny in terms of video, things like that. And it's something they want to be a part of. And as we go to different markets, we've got to partner with people in the area. And one of the things I was really bad at early in my career was that, number one, but number two, releasing control. And I know you and I have talked about this too. It's like for so long, I did everything myself, all the assigning. I didn't want to hear about anybody, making an assignment or making a decision. Like it had to be me. And over the years, I've learned that, number one, there are people who are capable of making those decisions, making those assignments as good or better than me, especially when you talk about going to a different area. So I want to partner with those people. That's United Travel is a major company. I mean, right now it's not a major company because we're not playing any baseball, but we have 2 full-time guys on staff. We have site supervisors and things of that nature kind of all over the country. I have a ton of people in college baseball who have called me and said, Alex, like, I'll do anything I can to help you. We want to use this as an avenue to help umpires. I'll go out and evaluate for free. I'll help you at clinics, whatever it may be. Guys have been on board with that. And it's about partnership. And you know what? At the end of the day, I could make a lot more money if I did everything myself, but I also would probably be out of this in 5, 6 years. So I would rather give it away. I would rather hire people that I like, hire people that I know can do the job, and partner with people in different areas. I will say that one of the things that we really have going on is in Indianapolis, we have hotel rooms at a pretty low cost, $10 a night to the guys. So that operation is run in conjunction with some of the umpires, but we also have a lot of guys coming from out of town. So we're lucky in that way. We have a great partner in Atlanta, in Todd Marler, has partnered with us and works as an umpire, works as a site supervisor, works as kind of one of my right-hand men to tell me what's going on. And in Kansas City, we've had great partnership with John Brower, who's a Division II coordinator, and some of the guys out there. So it's been about that, and it's also been about, as we get going here in the first year, sprinkling our people around to really get a feel for who can do what and things like that. It's been a lot of phone calls to references. I mean, we're outside of our comfort zone a little bit in terms of having had our eyes on every single umpire. We're relying on recommendations and things like that in certain areas. And I don't like to do that, but I also know the product that we're capable of putting out there. And if that means for 1 year, we have to feel our way through to get it to year 2, where we've had our eyes on everyone, then I would rather have it help umpires be a part of the solution than turn it away just for that for 1 year. So that's kind of where we're at there. And it's not easy. I mean, I will tell you, I'm very lucky to have had it be those 3 cities. I'm sure there would be some other cities where it would be tougher because people don't want to give up those games, or in certain instances we have complexes taken over by different people. We have complexes built new, and people figure, well, if I can get the umpires to stonewall or not work, now I can get the assigning contract. But again, we're back to the same thing we started this conversation with, which is, what's in the best interest of the umpires? How do we help umpires, and how do we work in partnership? So I think you and I have had a pretty good partnership in Central and Northern New Jersey. I probably haven't been as much help in some spots as I could have been, just because I'm so busy. But I just think in general, communication, partnership, and showing people why you can do the best. And again, for me, it's, in 10 years, I've tried to learn as much as I can to not be a bull in China shop, and show people why we can do it instead of telling them. And it's worked out, and I think we have a good base because of it. So I know it's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy. So I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if that helps, but it's the best I got right now.
Yeah, when I just, as somebody who does this in a fairly small, I'm not too branched out into different states. Just when I saw those cities, I'm just going, man, what an undertaking.
Yeah.
The logistics of it. And, I would imagine, I give you credit for reaching out to other people and partnering up, because that's probably the only way you could stay sane and get through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when your organization, or even my organization at NJSAB, we don't have the resources to hire a full-time person. And that's what I struggled with forever. Like, I want someone to be on board with me and be part of it, but I can't pay them to do this full-time. And honestly, like, a part-time person, that's tough. I need people to answer the phones. I need people to assign games. And so it's always that balance with organizations. And we're just lucky enough at United Travel that, the scope is big enough that we can justify having full-time people. And I mean, I think for so long we've thought about umpire assigning as just some random guy. And who assigns the games or puts people in games. And really, I think one of the things I've learned is we've tried to make this a company like anything else. You have employees, you have people who you expect to do things, and you have a source of staff, and you have to run it like a business, because the days of assigning baseball games on the back of a napkin, they're over. And I think the days of your small singular assigners are also over. I think it's going to become big companies and things like that. So that's the direction we're headed, and we've tried to be professional in that manner.
And I think when you look at the future of organizational structures, I think the company model is way more efficient, gets things done faster and easier, and is more innovative than maybe the way organizations have been run for the last 30, 40 years. And I think you're dead on about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was always tough for me, and I'll ask you too, is as a guy who was doing a lot of single assigning, meaning I was trying to be a company, but it was really just me, and we were calling ourselves a company. And, I do have a business partner, but he was involved in different aspects of the business. And, he certainly was kind of doing the same thing. We were in the same boat, but it was like, okay, I want to still umpire. I want to be on the field so bad. I really enjoy it. Sometimes even those 2 or 3 hours are like the easiest part of my day. I just get to go work a game. But it got to a point for me where, like, instead of focusing on the game, I was focusing on, oh shit, what's going on with my cell phone right now? What's going on with my email? And the stress was getting to me. I mean, how are you dealing with that? I know you're still on the field, not only college, high school, but I know you still work some perfect game stuff and some of your tournaments and things like that, I think. So what is that like for you, and how do you deal with it? Do you feel like that could lead to burnout, or does it really stress you out?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the answer is yes to all of those. But I still think I'm like 5 years behind you in your progression here. So whatever you feel, I'll feel it in 5 years, because
Yeah.
I'm just not. I haven't dealt with this stuff yet in terms of, I guess, transitioning yet. But what's helped me is with Perfect Game and Bob Barth and Colleen Barth, they sort of started to push me to get off the field, because I was 24 or 25 and doing 10 games a weekend and assigning the whole thing. And I would keep my phone in my back pocket, and it would
I've been there.
vibrate for literally all 7 innings. And I've never felt a stress like that in my life. I'm sure, obviously first responders and things like that have other stress. But
Yeah.
man, you can't even focus. You want to get off the field so badly just to put the fires out in all these different areas that, we basically had to sit down and her say, we have too much going on. These tournaments are too high level. There's too many fields. Like, let's come to an agreement so you're off the field. And I fought that for, probably a couple of weeks before cooler heads prevailed. And I realized I can't be the best assigner or, evaluator or site supervisor of umpires if I'm constantly on a single game in a massive tournament. So the real answer is I've taken a major step back into what I do on the field. I still do college baseball, but I don't do weekends, as you know, because it's just, I block that every weekend. It's just not possible. And, I do high school stuff, again, during the week only, but during the weekend, I'm usually, in front of a computer like this or, nearby my phone so I can take care of any issues that happen. That's helped my stress level, but I still probably do need to take more of a step back to prevent that eventual burnout you're talking to. But, hopefully that comes as far as lessening the stress load.
Yeah, it's I started taking a lot of games in February. We're doing the whole college season in February, it felt like, and there would be that like flip of the switch where I was like, oh, okay, I got 1 league going, now I got 2 leagues going, now I got 3 leagues going, and every day in March seemed to get worse and worse. One thing I wanted to ask you is, I think it's important, like, talk to me a little bit about the support you get from home, from either parents or siblings or girlfriends, significant others. Like, how does that help you? And like, what do you have to say about like how this would work if you didn't have them in your life, and things like that, and how much of a positive impact they've had on you.
Yeah, I mean, when I started this, I was pretty young. So like the support from my dad in particular, who always thought that I was like the best there ever was in umpiring, which is clearly not true. But like, man, he thought I should have been doing Major League Baseball at like 23, and just continued to support the eventual goal, which looked very, very unlikely at that time. So, how difficult it is to get into markets or areas that have been serviced by a particular organization for 30, 40, 50 years, sometimes longer. It's just so
Yeah.
built into it's built into the cake already. It's not even a question of who they're going to use for umpires. So the support of my dad probably made me keep going, but present day, the way more difficult task is my girlfriend, Kate, who I had to kick off the computer for this, who was shopping on Ncaa for a house worth of furniture. But yeah, she's been awesome and just understands that when that date in the calendar comes around, it's just a different life for us. And college baseball every day for the most part, which I'm very thankful to be able to do that. And then once we transition into particularly Perfect Game, and we have men's leagues that play a billion games every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. There's also a lot of time during the week, as you know, preparing for that weekend. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then hopefully you don't have to spill more work into Friday to get the weekend covered, but that happens more often than I'd like. And then you're constantly on call, at dinner or whatever. It's just, I give her a lot of credit for dealing with it, and she kind of knew what she was getting into, but it's still to experience it, when you live with somebody and, you might have to turn the car around on the way to dinner because you got to go cover something, or you got to go sit back down at the computer. Like, there's been a lot of animosity over stuff like that, and I give her credit for continuing to roll with the punches. But I was going to ask you the same question. Like, it takes a lot of understanding from a lot of people to be able to deal with this stuff.
Yeah, she'll never see this, I don't think, but maybe she will. But girlfriend Monique, I mean, we've been together 5+ years now, and there's people who have said to me, like, I didn't even know you had a girl. And that's not to respect her in any way. I mean, she's so supportive. I'm on the road probably 9 months a year. She's here in Las Vegas. We live together, and never a question about anything that I'm doing, or where am I, or when do you need to work, and things like that. But it's challenging. I mean, I went through relationship after relationship where I was like, okay, they're not gonna make it through a baseball season. It just ain't gonna happen.
Exactly.
And that some of those people I'm very good friends with still. It's just, that's not what they needed in a relationship, and I totally understand that. I mean, it was hard at the time, but I get it. And I think you just, in terms of that, you just have to find someone that can deal with it and wants to deal with it and understands sports. And so that's kind of on that side. And just, I'm an only child. I've in some way always kind of just been, my parents have done everything they can for me, and I was their one. So it was easy that way for them. But I get so much support from everything, from I started assigning when I was 14 to them driving me to every single game. I mean, as a kid without a license, I was working like 150 games a year, and they're driving me all over the Somerset County and things like that. And for NJSAB, my mother actually handles our uniforms. My father handles our books and things like that. So
That's awesome.
It's been very supportive and really helped in a lot of ways. And I try to recognize that, and I guess I probably still talk to both of my parents every day. I make that phone call almost every day just to check in on business, check in to see how they're doing. With them being in New Jersey right now too, especially with this. And my dad he's not sick, but he's probably in what they would call that vulnerable class. So I just, I'm always checking in. You staying home, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And, but I can't, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without that support. So I think that it's always important to remember that. And that's not just assigners, that's umpires. People put up all these jokes on Facebook about leaving for 6 months or 4 months or whatever. And, and this, now everyone's home in April and wives are like, what are you doing here? And all that stuff is funny, but it's based in, a reality, and it's based in truth. And we're all lucky to have the support systems that we have. So I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget what those people do for me.
Yeah. It's without that kind of support, it's very difficult. And I was going to just ask you, after being an assigner for this long, is there a better feeling than having a game where you can go umpire and there's nothing else on the board? Is that the most beautiful feeling? It's like euphoric.
Yeah. I would say this was going to be my first full year off of the field. I probably worked in 19, probably about maybe somewhere in the range of 30 games, maybe 40. But this was going to be my first full year off the field, especially with the United travel stuff taking off. It's working baseball is such a challenge. I always wanted to be good. I wanted to have the respect of the teams, and I just wanted the guys I was out there with to think that I was doing a good job and respect me and want to be out there with me. And that was just always so important to me. And to be able to do that, you got to have so much focus. Working baseball at a high level, day in and day out, conference series, it takes focus. Everybody, when they start out, it's like, oh, I could work 50 Division I games in a year, not a big deal. And when you realize the amount of focus that it takes, the amount of support that it takes from home, from your partners, from your assigner, to be able to be at a high level. Yeah, you could go mail in 30 of those games and get through it, but to want to be great every day, in that 15 to 12 game, in that 2-1 game, it doesn't matter. You got to have so much focus. So, to your point, there were some games in February I was like, wow, this is great. I can just go call balls and strikes. My phone's probably not going to ring while I'm on the field. And if it does, it's not because someone has a flat tire. It's because they need me to answer a question that I could answer over the next week, and we'll be good. But those days for me are fewer and far between. It's we just, with more conferences in college and things like that, it's just the days just aren't there. And I always wanted to be the best. And if I'm not focused, then I'm not being the best I can be. And I just decided, hey, let's see how this goes for a year or two off the field, see how much I miss it, see what I can do. And what I really want to do is develop people that work for me full time as assigners, things like that, so that I don't have to be the guy getting every phone call. And that's the key to kind of what I'm trying to do right now. I wish I would have done it 10 years ago, to be honest with you. I don't know that we had the money to do it 10 years ago, but I think it's so important, because whether it's not being able to go out to dinner with your girlfriend, not being able to focus on a game, being able to go on vacation, I don't think you can live like that for 50 years. It's like, and that's what it would be for me. I started when I was 14. I'm going to probably be doing this till I retire. So we're talking about, you're never going to go on a vacation in 50 years? It just doesn't work. So,
yeah.
Let me ask you a question. You've been at this. I know you do a lot of stuff on the field with guys and off the field for people that have been members of your association or people that you're memorializing in some way. On an annual basis or in total, what's the most pride you have in terms of something that your organization has done or you personally have done?
It's probably two things. One is probably more serious than the other. I've had a lot of people that have taken an interest and helped me, even if I was at the time probably quite abrasive and arrogant and cocky, and back 22, 23, 24 when we were starting this. And I've tried to pay homage to those guys, and unfortunately some have passed, some tragically, but I try to give an award away in their name and keep the memory of what they've done for me and this organization, fresh for everybody every year. My biggest influence is a guy named Brian Hoffman, who we give away just flat out our most passionate umpire of the year. We give it away every year after Brian's name. So that always gives me quite a bit of pride. We just have one annual meeting a year, but I usually give some sort of speech to memorialize him. And I have so many different stories. I probably won't run out of different speech content for him for at least 10, 15, 20 years from now. And we have a variety of those. And we just had one of our cadets pass away from COVID-19, which was awful. It was really a sad situation. So we've tried to memorialize him in the best way we could with our Cadet of the Year award, which we haven't given away yet, but I'm pretty proud of that. On a way less serious note, I'm really proud of the guys we put into college baseball. I think that's the best thing I can do. And I'm probably somewhere along the lines of the transition to maturity and that process. But 5 years ago, it would have been how many leagues I can acquire. That would have been what I would have answered your question with. And,
Sure.
Sticking it to some other guys maybe. But getting guys into college baseball is really become the thing I'm most prideful in, and seeing those guys get where they wanted to go and, posting their first game and seeing them get there through the hard work and effort that they put in and we may have assisted with. That's probably my most prideful thing, aside from just paying homage to people who've helped me.
Yeah, that's great. That's I knew that you had some personal stories and things there in terms of stuff you guys have done. I've obviously seen them on Facebook and followed them a little bit, so I was really interested. And it's great that you're able to give back in that way. And the one thing, with your organization getting larger and larger, I'm so glad that you still hold those ties to the community and to that kind of core group, because that's really important. And unfortunately, in some of the stuff I've done over the years is something that I've lost a little bit just from traveling. And so it's really cool that you still do that. And I hope you'll do that for a long time, because it's really important. And it's always important. Again, we talked a little bit about who supports you, but just understanding that and what's your why that has nothing to do with like actual baseball, but like, why am I doing this, period? Like, who inspires me, who gives me hope to keep going and think that I'm doing a good thing here. So all that stuff's really important, and I would encourage you to do it as long as you can, man. It's so important.
Yeah. And as we get, you're obviously a little older than me, but as we get more mature, we start to realize that, it wasn't all our doing. We didn't create this all by ourselves. There was a lot of help and a lot of effort from a lot of different people that contributed to whatever growth or whatever success you had. And, that's just something I try to continue to get better at. I know you do as well. So I respect that. And in many ways, I try to follow your footsteps in that regard.
Yeah. So, well, geez, this is going to be a tough post over an hour here with you.
Yeah, we're running long here.
Going to listen to this, but I just wanted to sign off and just say to kind of everyone who's listening, just stay safe, stay at home. I tell you to stay at home and try to not spread this thing. And I know everyone's missing baseball, but number one here is safety, and we'll get out there soon enough. I hope it's not all the way till we have a vaccine, but it might be. I don't know. I really hope not. But everyone stay safe. And, if we're playing in Indy and anyone wants to come and you guys aren't, feel free. Give me a call. John, it was great to be with you today. I got to learn a lot about you, which is maybe some stuff that I didn't know. And, I hope that our relationship continues to move forward. And I certainly hope that we can start to put together some partnerships in New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania that benefit umpires, because that's really what it all boils down to. And it's all we can do.
No doubt. Yeah, it was really a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we'll talk more in the future about stuff like that. But hearing the human side of both of our stories, I think will be what people want to hear most, and obviously
Sure.
the charitable stuff. So it was really a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll do it again. If we're still sitting inside in a month, maybe we can do it again.
If I'm still sitting inside in a month, oof, it's going to be tough.
Be safe.
It's going to be tough. So, all right, man. Well, take it easy, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Be safe. See you, man.